Picture this: two sisters, standing on the same rooftop, staring down at the same sprawling city lights, 6 days apart. Both made the same gut-wrenching choice: to let go, to leap into the dark. One was shattered by a night of violence so brutal it's hard to fathom. The other? Crushed by a guilt she couldn't shake, a weight that dragged her to the edge. But here's what'll chill you to the bone. Their deaths didn't end the story. No, they sparked a nightmare that tore their family apart, piece by piece. So what drove them to that rooftop? And why, 21 years later, are the men who broke them still walking free, hiding in South Korea's dazzling entertainment world? This is the tragic tale of Yang Sora and Yang Sojong, or maybe you've heard them as Soyuo and Sujin, depending on who's whispering their names. Two sisters with big dreams, stepping into South Korea's entertainment industry like it was a golden ticket. Sora was the brainy one, a grad student with an IQ of 150, the kind of woman who could have changed the world. Sojong? She was the firecracker, a dancer who lit up stages behind Korea's biggest stars, chasing fame under those bright lights. But those lights hid shadows, and the sisters walked right into a trap that would destroy them. It started with a simple job. Sojong thought it'd be fun for Sora to join her on a film set. Instead, it became a descent into hell. Their mother, Mrs. Jang, or Zhang Yenlu as some call her, watched it all unravel. For 2 decades, she's been fighting, a lone voice against a system that turned its back on her girls. What's at stake here? A family ripped to shreds, a mother's relentless battle, and one haunting question we can't ignore: how deep does the darkness run in an industry built on glamour and silence? Let's rewind to 2004. Yang Sora and Yang Sojong were the heartbeat of their working-class family, two sisters shining bright in a world that wasn't always kind. Sora was the golden child, 30 years old and a top student at one of South Korea's best universities. She'd spend her days buried in books, scribbling thesis notes, dreaming of a future where she'd make her parents proud, stable, secure, the works. Then there was Sojong, just 26, 4 years younger and full of fire. She was a backup dancer for Korea's hottest stars, moving to the rhythm of the spotlight she craved. These two? They were tight, closer than most. So when Sojong heard about a part-time gig as an extra on a film set, she didn't hesitate. "Hey, Sora," she probably said, "this could be fun, easy money, a little adventure." It was supposed to be a no-brainer, a chance for Sora to step out of her books and into her sister's world. So Sora said yes. She joined a crew. Some whisper it was for a drama called Lovers, though no one's sure. That's where she met Lee Jun, a casting director with a warm smile and a handshake that felt like a promise. At first, it seemed perfect. Cameras rolling, lights flashing, a taste of something new. But that smile? It was hiding something dark, something monstrous. What started as a golden opportunity was about to turn into a trap, and fast. How did it spiral so quick? Stick around because this is where it gets chilling. Fast forward a few weeks on that film set. It's late, filming's wrapped for the day, and the crew's buzzing with that end-of-shift energy. Lee Jun, the casting director, walks up to Sora with a drink in his hand. "Come on," he says, all charm and pressure, "just one sip. Celebrate with us." Sora wasn't a drinker. She knew her limits, but he wouldn't let up. So she caved, took that sip. And that's when everything went wrong. The room started spinning, her head fogged up, her legs buckled beneath her. Before she knew it, Lee Jun was dragging her away. Some say to a nearby hotel, others swear it was a grimy video room down the street. What happened next? It's the kind of horror that keeps you up at night. 12 men, crew members, from scouts to department heads, took turns assaulting her. 12. They pinned her down, ignored her pleas, and when she fought back, they hit her with threats. "We'll kill your mother. We'll sell your sister to a brothel." Some accounts say this wasn't a one-time thing. Those monsters kept it up for 11 months, tormenting her through the entire shoot. When Sora finally got home, she wasn't the same. Her mother found her wandering the house naked, muttering curses like, "Die, die," tearing up papers, even lashing out at the people she loved most. Mrs. Jang knew something was horribly wrong. She could see her daughter slipping away. Then one day, Sora broke down and confessed, tears streaming, voice shaking. She'd been violated, broken by a pack of monsters wearing human faces. Her diary spilled it all, every name, every scar. But here's the kicker. Would anyone believe her, or would the world just turn away? Sora's confession lit a fire under Mrs. Jang. She grabbed those diaries, pages filled with every horrific detail, and marched her daughter to the police. "Get them," she begged. "Make them pay." But the police? They didn't just fail Sora, they crushed her all over again. Picture this. They dragged her into a room, sat her down, and made her face her attackers, 12 of them, separated by nothing but a flimsy partition. She could hear their voices, their laughter, mocking her as she choked out the nightmare they'd put her through. And the questions? They were brutal. Why didn't you scream louder? If you were really assaulted, why didn't you fight harder? One officer even handed her a pencil and said, "Draw their genitals, prove it." Can you imagine? For a year and 8 months, that investigation dragged on, every interview a fresh wound, every doubt a dagger. Sora couldn't take it. She withdrew the charges, her spirit broken, and the case? Evidence conveniently lost. The agency fired 4 of those monsters, but no arrests, no justice, just a slap on the wrist. Sora tried to claw her way back. She took a job at a chicken restaurant, enrolled in a craft workshop, anything to feel normal again. But the trauma was a shadow she couldn't outrun. On August 28, 2009, at 8:18 p.m., she climbed to the 18th floor of an apartment building in Seoul. The city lights glittered below as she stood at the edge, no one there to pull her back. She jumped. 6 days later, Sojong stood on that same rooftop, drowning in guilt. She'd brought Sora into that world, and the weight of it crushed her. Clutching a photo of her sister, she let it slip from her fingers, and followed her into the dark. Their father couldn't bear it. Grief triggered a brain hemorrhage, and he was gone too. The family was in ruins. But then Mrs. Jang picked up the pieces, and she fought back. How far would one mother go to make this right? You're about to find out. With her daughters gone and her husband buried, Mrs. Jang was left alone, but she didn't break. She became a warrior. She filed lawsuits against those 12 men, determined to drag their crimes into the light. But the courts? They slammed the door shut, said the statute of limitations had run out years ago. 3 years for a civil case, 7 for criminal back then, long gone by 2014. So she hit the streets instead, a one-woman army. Picture her standing outside entertainment agencies, police stations, holding photos of Sora and Sojong, her voice hoarse from shouting for justice no one wanted to give. In 2019 she took it further, fired up a YouTube channel and dropped a bombshell. The names of all 12 perpetrators, their new identities, where they lived. She didn't care about privacy laws, she'd already lost everything. Netizens rallied behind her, a digital uprising. It worked, and CJ Entertainment, NBC+, they blacklisted some of those guys, cut ties after the outrage. But jail time? Not a day. Fast forward to 2025, Nam Gong-min's drama Lovers hits the airwaves, and whispers start swirling. Lee Jun, that same casting director, was tied to its crew. Suddenly, Mrs. Jang's fights back in the spotlight. She's still out there, staging protests, facing down the men who stole her family, even got into a physical showdown with a cop who'd pressured Sora years ago. She's a mother who won't quit, a force of nature in a world that keeps looking away. But after 21 years, will justice ever come? Or is this just another scream into the void? Two sisters, Sora and Sojong, gone, swallowed by a system that didn't give a damn. One broken by unimaginable cruelty, the other lost to a guilt she couldn't outrun. And their mother, Mrs. Jang? She's still out there, screaming for justice into a void that just echoes back silence. Meanwhile, the men who did this, the ones who shattered their lives, they're not rotting in cells. No, some are still out there, thriving, walking the same glitzy halls of the industry that let Sora and Sojong fall. This isn't just a tragedy, it's a wake-up call, staring us right in the face. How many more dreams have to die before we drag this darkness into the light? We owe them more than tears, more than memory, we owe them change. Their story can't just end here. And speaking of endings, next time, we're diving into another Seoul nightmare, a predator hiding in a high-rise, right under everyone's noses. You won't believe the trail he left behind. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you then.